This refers to the street underneath the Renaissance 6 o'clock city clock of the 16th century, housed in the Romanesque tower. Notice that this is a 16th century building probably, and this is the entrance into the 3rd or 4th century Diocletian palace. Here we can get a look up where that door went and see the slot that carried the door. Some of those stones are out of position. There also would have been a slot that carried it up vertically. And there, the remnant of an actual window, or maybe just artwork. I can't see it there, but something engraved, and maybe other windows or archways were in that wall. And what did those holes once support? Maybe some kind of plaque or a piece of machinery for this area. Here, the inner wall and arched entryway of this, I'm calling it an anciente. Could be wrong on all counts, pronunciation and name. Imagine the majesty of the size of this entire complex if this is just the hint of it. This is where he retired. And notice this Ispod Ure, freehand scribbled over that archway. That same name, I believe, of the street that went underneath the arch, which is just another 30 feet to my left, the entryway. Here are two street signs, a new one, Ispod something, but much different than Ispod Ure, number 3, down below. And here to my right, indicating another Ispod, but Ure 2, or Ure 2. Here a column, or a half column, that looks like it would have been the side of a doorway. This, I think, if it's anything, is an old building that was attached to the inside of the wall. Whatever role this room did play, or this area played, here's where its doors went. Considerable doors, 3 hinged. Would have opened towards me, and probably in those days had that traditional long rock that was worked to prevent water from entering down the base as a threshold. How old are these hinges? Well, apparently where we are is called the Iron Gate Palace. And I need to look for these, which are heads from the period of antiquity, built into the courtyard of the palace. The left one of Dioscuri, and the right one of Tetrarch Maximianus, or something like that. And this icon, the title of the inscription, per something right, Good Fortune Attend. Here's the other side, the interior side of that door. When I say interior, I mean of the palace. It may be the exterior of that building area. And here's that little icon that we were just looking at. This the inscription. So this would probably be the exterior, and this was a welcoming inscription. This is a plaque to Robert Adams, 1728 to 1792. One of the originators of the classicist architecture, and the first person to make a detailed study of Diocletian's palace. Wandering back through one of those arched alcoves, if you will, I found here an old fountain from 1885. Once, perhaps, bowl-like that actually held some water. Here, that small bit of corner detail that we notice when we're walking down narrow streets, allowing wagons to get through the corner more easily, but this one has some little bit more spicy detail at the top than we've seen. Normally it's very pragmatic, but this one's nicely designed. Since these ladies obviously know where the really good stuff is, I'll follow them. And when this wall was damaged, this detail probably when a building right where I'm standing was demoed and pieces fell off and hit on it. That would be my guess. It's interesting what you don't see when you're traipsing through, even as slowly as I go through, when there's all kinds of people around, but I miss this little bit of detail. Just poking into somebody's back alley. Not that old, but interesting. I also noticed this little stone detail poking out of the side of this building. A bird. Was that a piece of sculpture from the palace stolen and stuck in here because it was interesting? When this building was first built and its shutters first put on. Notice the remains of an old sewer system. And these stone fittings here, did they support some kind of drainage pipe? And what about this? Right near that large church, just to orientate us. And down there to the left, excuse my pan, is the baptistry. And I'm underneath that structure for keeping these buildings from falling in on themselves. But I noticed this very pretty bit of work up here. Again, what looks like an eagle from what I can see. Certainly this would have been one of the early palaces of the wealthy. An old building beside this building which has its own interesting detail. Look at that sculptured area that looks like it's an arch, or the remains of an arch that was arching out up and to the left over that doorway. And other buildings were built up against that one. But what of that crest on the top? would think the little guy perched on the rump of the lion is Diocletian. We can look at this column and see where it's been abused by abutment of other buildings or structures that just needed to carve their way into it. The weathering that's taken place. How well worn the stone is. Okay, I'm now leaving. That palace area is behind me. I'm now going into this that I looked at yesterday when there were people singing in it. Apparently the location for all kinds of performances.